From the 11 Alive studios, this is The Georgia Vote with Faith Jesse and Zach Merchant.
Well, good Sunday morning and welcome in. Faith is off today. Gridlock in Washington continues, and we are now approaching record territory. Today marks day 26, the second longest shutdown in United States history. Republicans, Democrats, they are still stuck over competing proposals to fund the government. But this week there were some surprises. On Thursday, Senators Jon Ossoff and Raphael Warnock split, with the bulk of their party becoming two of only three Democrats to vote in favor of a bill advanced by Wisconsin Republican Senator Ron Johnson. The plan would have kept paychecks flowing to troops and some other federal employees who are required to go to work even while the government is shut down. It had a lot of GOP support. Senators Jon Ossoff, Raphael Warnock joined Pennsylvania Democrat John Fetterman in voting with those Republicans, but because no other Democrats joined in, it failed to pass by 6 votes. In a written statement, Raphael Warnock said in part, quote, "Essential workers shouldn't be punished because Washington Republicans chose to shut down the government. This vote reflects my commitment to the people who work hard every day to keep us safe and keep our country moving." Senator Jon Ossoff released a statement of his own saying in part, quote, "Military service members, TSA workers, and air traffic controllers are among those who simply must come to work, and they should be paid for that work." Election day is fast approaching. In 9 days, voters will decide the winners in races for seats on the Atlanta Board of Education. One of those races is for the citywide District 8 at-large seat. Casey Brock is a longtime educator. Royce Mann is a March for Our Lives activist and APS graduate. And Aisha Stith is a mom of 3 APS students. Our Faith Jesse sat down with each of the candidates to talk about their priorities for Atlanta students.
If you are elected, what's your day one priority?
Oh my goodness, our literacy proficiency rates. If you've ever been in a classroom, if anyone listening has ever been in a classroom, the toughest moment as a teacher is when a student can't access the information. As you'd imagine, that leads to so much when it comes to mental health, to behavior challenges, to just how a student feels about themselves as a student. That's really that first step, is when they can't read. Right now, our literacy proficiency rates, it's close to 30%, yet our graduation rate is around 90%. And even though we're celebrating that, there's obviously a really big gap there. And so I intend to fill that gap to bring it a little bit closer to make sure that more students are reading across the district. Because if they can, and then they're graduating, I can only imagine what will happen in 10 years when we get to a place where there are adults in Atlanta who aren't able to live the life of their dreams because they haven't had a great educational experience.
My priority is to ensure that we stay laser focused on student outcomes here in Atlanta, and that we build coalition with other local districts across the state and fight for the funding and freedom that we deserve as local school districts. We need board members who are willing to take that fight from the board dais to the streets, to the Gold Dome, and even to the federal level if we need that. And that's what I've spent the last 8 years doing, is advocating at all levels of government, from being legislative director for March for Our Lives and fighting under the Gold Dome, to interning in Senator Ossoff's office and doing work at the federal level, to working for the Board of Education and doing policy work at the local level. And I think that we need leaders who understand that unless we build that coalition across government entities, bring in partners in the business and nonprofit space, and have a united front, then we're not going to be successful.
What's your day one priority? To listen. You know, typically HR people will tell you it takes a whole year to kind of fully understand an institution. I know I do not have a year to do that, but what I do want to do is make sure that I'm addressing the most pertinent needs. Like, I have my ideas, I've been out in the field, I'm talking to parents who will tell you. I mean, I think they are the community voice that needs to guide the conversation, but I absolutely want to know, like, what is it that people are saying needs to be fixed? And then I begin researching immediately. Like, someone has conquered every problem we've got, most likely, and we can use that as a measurable way to get to the other side.
That is one of many races on the November 4th ballot. Another is for 2 seats on the Public Service Commission, statewide positions that all Georgians will get to vote on. And while this year's candidates are campaigning, a former contender is now facing criminal charges. Patty Durand ran for a PSC seat as a Democrat in 2022. A consumer activist now, she is now accused of stealing trade secrets. Doug Richards with the 11 Alive political team has more.
It is immoral for you. Patty Duran spent about 3 minutes lambasting rate hikes by Georgia Power, approved by the State Public Service Commission during a PSC meeting Tuesday. It is immoral and it is wrong, and our leaders fail us. PSC meetings are frequently awash in paper as advocates for all sides produce arguments for and against rate hikes. The ceiling of the boardroom also houses at least a half dozen video cameras. During a break in Tuesday's PSC meeting, police say surveillance video documented Duran's interest in some of that paper. An arrest warrant describes it as a booklet labeled Georgia Power Trade Secrets. The warrant says as the room emptied, Duran picked up the book, stuffed it into her purse, then left. Capitol Police arrested Duran afterward. A warrant charged her with theft of trade secrets, a felony charge in Georgia carrying a prison sentence of up to 5 years and a fine of up to $50,000. In a statement, Georgia Power wrote, "Theft or exposure of proprietary information is a serious matter that risks harming both our company, the workers, the vendors, and contractors with whom we do business, and the customers we serve." Doug Richards, 11 Alive News.
Well, it's time now for our political roundtable. Today joining us, we have Mark Roundtree, Republican strategist and pollster. He is also the founder of Landmark Communications and a veteran of Georgia campaigns and elections. Also joining us today, Maria Andrade, Democratic strategist and co-founder of First Edition Strategies. She is a veteran political advisor with experience in advertising and nonprofits as well. Also with us today, Rahul Bali, politics reporter at WABE 90.1 FM on your radio. He's also the co-chair of the Atlanta Press Club Debate Committee. And we just had some big debates earlier this month leading up to the November 4th election. All returning members of the panel, it's always so good to have you all. Let's talk about these November elections that are fast approaching. Rahul, let's start with you. The state of the PSC race right now, sometimes this can be a sleepy campaign. This year, a lot of focus on these two Republican incumbents and two Democratic challengers. Why so much focus this year?
Well, first of all, because at the top of the ballot. You know, usually they're much further down the ballot and don't get as much attention, don't get as much money being raised. But you know, I pulled up the latest numbers, and we're right at 3% voter turnout. So this is really becoming a turnout election. Can Republicans and Democrats turn out their voters? You're seeing events with Governor Kemp and Congressman Brian Jack with the PSC candidates, and you're seeing, you know, national Democratic figures coming into the state, you know, to campaign for these races. Let's
talk about this turnout question, Mark. I want to bring you in. You have these two incumbents on the PSC, yes, both Republicans, Tim Echols, Fitz Johnson. Some people have said they are a little more vulnerable than in past years this year. Others have disagreed. What's your take on where it stands?
I think they're very vulnerable now.
Why?
Well, about 250,000 people will have voted by the end of early voting. At the start of early voting, early on, 31% of the people who voted early had a Republican background versus 55% Democrat. Today, those numbers have closed somewhat, but the Democrats are clearly more engaged in this election so far than Republicans. Today, 40% of the people that have voted in this election early have a Republican background, 49% Democrat. So right now it is leaning toward the Democrats.
Now, I would imagine some Republicans may be nodding their heads along and saying, okay, that makes sense. But I've got to imagine, too, there are going to be a lot of Democrats and Democratic-leaning voters who are watching this and would think, that may be true, but Georgia, for most of its statewide races for the past basically 20 years, save for some federal races, has always gone to Republicans.
It does.
Go ahead, and then I want to bring Maria in.
And Election Day probably is traditionally a lot more Republican, and the early voting is oftentimes split. So Republicans usually win the election with the cavalry. They come in on Election Day, and that's their move. But the Republicans, I think, you know, Trump made a joke at one point that Republicans will be tired of winning. Well, they have won virtually every battle since the November election, and I'm wondering if this is a little bit of softness and kind of laziness.
Like apathy a little bit, maybe.
They're winning everything, but this may be a sock in the nose.
Let's bring some Democrats in here, a Democratic perspective. Maria, from where the Democrats sit, you've got these two challengers. You've got Peter Hubbard and Alicia Johnson, both trying to unseat incumbents. Do Democrats view this as a real chance for them to flip some statewide seats?
Yeah, and I think it's viewed also as testing the waters for what the midterms are going to look like in a lot of ways. But if you bring it down to the basics, anyone you ask right now, what's your biggest issue, what's top of mind, they'll bring affordability as one of their biggest issues. And we right now have two incumbents who have raised the rates of their electricity bills for Georgians over 6 times since 2023. And I think when Georgians look at their bills, they're going to be like, this is reason enough for me to turn out, and I know exactly what I need to do in this race.
We've heard, Rahul, I want to bring you in here, and I can tell you want to jump in here too. So let's get you in. There's been some talk of this race, and Maria, you brought it up, Mark, you did too, about this race being kind of a preview of what may be coming in 2026. Rahul, is that hype or is that for real?
Well, I think going back to my previous point about turnout, because this is becoming a race about getting your Republican or your Democratic voters out. That's why this is important. It's almost, could it be possibly a test drive of how to turn out base voters going into next year? And then the other point I want to ask to point out with these elections is, think about what's on the rest of the ballot. The rest of the ballots are city elections, municipal elections. Those are heavily Democrat. That's a concern I've heard from Republicans saying, look, that's what else is on the ballot. Some are actually happy that the Atlanta mayor's race is not competitive because that could have brought in a lot of Democrat-leading voters.
Always a lot to talk about here. This PSC race getting a lot of attention. We're going to be tracking it closely. We're going to go to break, guys. We will be right back after this. Jeanette Williams was thrust into the spotlight in 2024. She is the mother of Amber Thurman. Thurman died from complications following a medication abortion. Our Faith Jesse spoke to Williams recently. She talked about turning her pain into purpose and her fight to make sure no other mother experiences the same loss.
There's something about a Georgia fall that is just so peaceful.
Absolutely.
What's been going through your head?
Every day I wake up is different. 2022 changed my life. 2024 devastated my life. This was Amber, day 1. I just had her, September 16th of 1993.
Jeanette Williams is the mother of Amber Thurman.
Everything she did it for Messiah.
These photos are constant reminders of the pain a mother carries after losing a child. Amber died in August 2022. 2 months after the Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade. At the time, Georgia's so-called heartbeat law was in effect, banning abortions after about 6 weeks. According to a ProPublica investigation, Amber was 9 weeks pregnant with twins and sought a medical abortion in North Carolina. She reportedly took abortion pills, suffered complications, and went to a Metro Atlanta hospital with 20 hours passing before she was taken to an operating room. According to ProPublica, Georgia's Maternal Mortality Review Board determined her death was preventable, citing that delay in care.
Then you have a duty to save her life.
Civil rights attorney Ben Crump is part of the family's legal team that says it will be pursuing a lawsuit against the hospital.
When I found out with the world that this was preventable, that wound that has never healed has reopened wider.
In the weeks after ProPublica's report, Jeanette's quiet Georgia life was thrust into the national spotlight.
And speak her name, Amber Nicole Thurman.
As Amber became a focal point of the abortion rights debates during the 2024 presidential election. But Jeanette was still a mother grieving.
We have Oprah and Kamala want us to come to Detroit. Y'all go ahead. I'm not going. I had nothing vested in politics.
Today, Jeanette is out on the political front, even endorsing Democratic candidate Jason Estevez for Georgia governor.
Jason came to my daughter's vigil. He just wanted to genuinely be there as if he was an uncle or a brother or something.
Serving the people without a political motive is what she saw.
We need people that are going to be true to their word. I read Jeremiah 29:11. For I know the plans I think towards you, said the Lord, plans to prosper you. I was supposed to go through this pain so I can be an encourager to a mother that can't do what I'm doing, and to pull that mother up and say, we have to do this.
A purpose not driven by politics, but simply a mother's love for her daughter.
Don't quit. Don't quit.
Faith's full interview with Jeanette Williams is available right now, streaming on 11 Alive Plus. Well, he is a rapper, a singer, an activist, and an Atlanta native. Michael Render, also known as Killer Mike, has backed progressive leaders like Senator Bernie Sanders. He's met with conservatives like Governor Brian Kemp and sat down with cultural influencers like Joe Rogan and Shannon Sharpe. He told our Faith Jesse this week that having tough conversations about our differences is what holds us together.
Find a friend or someone to build a relationship with that does not look like you, that is not of your same ethnic background, that does not have the same political beliefs, and that may be opposing some of your beliefs. Because when you get to know someone, it allows you to dissipate all the stereotypes you've been given. We come here free thinkers. We come here almost radical in our ability to love one another. And then we're given and injected with all these stereotypes, all these suspicions, all these fears by other people. But if you can get past those things and meet a person one-on-one, you'll find you have much more commonalities than you think you do.
Good advice from Killer Mike, but will it stick? That's the question. We are back now with our panel. Mark, I want to start with you. The chairman of the Georgia Republicans, Josh McCoon, the AJC is reporting he recently went on the radio and he said, in effect, the GOP Senate primary candidates have got to focus on Senator Jon Ossoff, a Democrat, and not spend so much time attacking each other. Killer Mike's talking about, hey, can we get along here? Can the Republicans in the Senate primary get along as they head into this race?
No chance.
That was a quick answer.
They're going to eat each other up.
Not taking the advice then. Why? Why is it going to be like that?
Collins and Carter know each other, and they know each other's strengths and weaknesses. Dooley is sort of the odd man out in the sense of knowledge, personal knowledge of the other candidates. But the grail to this is getting in the final election with Ossoff, because Ossoff is so vulnerable. No poll right now shows him with a majority of the vote. There is no poll out there that shows Ossoff with more than a majority of the vote. The Republican has a better than even chance of winning this election if they get nominated.
On the flip side, and Maria, I want to bring you in here, Senator Ossoff is bipartisanly known as a monster fundraiser. He raked in, I think it was something like $10 or $12 million in the last FEC report. Maria, do you agree with Mark's assessment here?
You know, it's funny that Chairman McCoon brings that up because it almost sounds like he's never really understood what a primary is about. You know, this is a little bit of what it's supposed to be like, but from where I'm sitting as a Democrat and, you know, where Trump is sitting actually as well, this is pretty interesting. You know, these are three people who are vying for Trump's endorsement. And so he's, you know, probably kicking it back and waiting to see what they say so they can out-MAGA each other and vie for his endorsement.
Rahul, you've covered Georgia politics for a long time. We know that President Donald Trump has weighed in, and he did so very quickly in the governor's race, endorsing current Lieutenant Governor Burt Jones. Governor Kemp has endorsed Derek Dooley in the Senate contest. President Trump has said he's watching closely, but he has not endorsed anybody yet. Is this right now the Donald Trump primary?
It could be. I mean, it could be at least pushing one of the candidates to a likely runoff. That's what, you know, a Trump endorsement may do. But I completely agree with Mark. No chance that this does not become a fight between the candidates, because, you know, most interesting thing is when I was at J.D. Vance's last appearance here in Georgia, the number of people who had not decided, and these are people at a Vance event who hadn't decided on that race. They've got to figure out a way to separate themselves, and attacking is one of those.
And we're running short on time here. We should maybe end with this. It may stress out strategists a little bit, but if you're a Georgia voter, you can have a lot of options. Guys, always so much to talk about. We appreciate you. We're going to break the Georgia vote. We'll continue right after this. Could Georgia join our neighbors in Tennessee and Florida in eliminating the state income tax? A handful of state Republicans running for higher office, they want it to happen. Right now, there is a bipartisan committee studying the idea. The Georgia Senate Special Committee on Eliminating Georgia's Income Tax met for the third time Tuesday. This time it was at Long Street Cafe in Gainesville. The chair of the committee is Republican Senator Blake Tillery. He, along with three other members of the committee, pledged to eliminate the state income tax as part of their campaigns for lieutenant governor. Tillery dismissed the suggestion that some senators support this plan just to win an election in 2026, saying the May primary will happen after the legislative session ends.
The bills will be voted on between January and March. So grade us on what we do, not on what we say, and I think you'll find out that you'll have a reduced income tax and a plan to go to zero long before you're ever asked to vote for any of us up here for any additional spots.
Senator Tillery, along with Senators Steve Gooch, John F. Kennedy, and Greg Dolezal, are all on the committee. They are all Republicans running for lieutenant governor. David Clark is another Republican in the race who also supports eliminating the state income tax. But there is still a big question here. By Georgia law, legislators must pass a balanced budget every year. If lawmakers get rid of the income tax, how do they pay for that? You can expect that question and any potential answers to be a focal point of the legislative session and of campaign season. Well, coming up, a Metro Atlanta cattle farmer explains what guides her life and her politics. The Voice of the Voter is next. Well, we say it every week. You can't have the Georgia vote without Georgia voters. This week, we are headed to South Fulton County to meet up with Rachel McBurnett. Tell me where we are right now.
We're at Little Bit Farm in Chattahoochee Hills, Georgia.
When you look out at a place like this, and when you have visitors who come here, do they sometimes say, "Wow, I live in the city. I've never seen a place like this"?
Most people do. Most people. You'd be surprised how many people have never seen a cow up close.
These look like some happy cows.
That's what we try to keep. If the cows are happy, then their meat is good.
Are they fairly self-sustaining out here?
Yes. Yes, because we have enough land that they eat off the land. We'll see if we can get up against Bert.
Which one's Bert?
He's the biggest one out there. There's Bert. We can go that way.
Yeah, I think I can figure out which one Bert is.
Yeah.
That is a really large cow.
He's a bull.
That's a really large bull. When you come out here and you walk around and you look at all this, there's got to be a moment where you look at all this and think, what a blessing this is.
Of course, every day.
When you look at the state of politics right now, what is the number one issue you hope your elected leaders, the candidates asking for your vote, address?
Well, I guess I would want them to address that we're a Christian nation, and that's what we were founded on, and that's what we should stand by.
What do you worry the most about?
Well, I can't say I really worry. We're not supposed to worry. God's in control, and if we're giving it to God, then God will take care of us. It may not be what we wanted, it may not be what we thought, but in the end, God is in control of all of us.
We always end with this question, what are you most optimistic about?
Well, it's the same answer. God's in control, and I can give it to God. I'll do the best I can do, and then I just let God take it from there.
Well, thanks for watching us today. We hope to see you here again next Sunday at 11 for another edition of the Georgia Vote.